Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of October 19th, 2020. This horoscope is brought to you by 1millionnights.com. We have a very active and really intense sky playing out all throughout the week, and finally, this is where I can give you some really good news because next week, some really blissful, harmonious, divinely orchestrated aspects finally perfect themselves. So even though we are still going to have a lot of tension, Mars is still going to square the Capricorn planets, but fortunately this is where the squares are going to lose their intensity, and also the Sun is finally exiting the sign of Libra. So it will break off the squares with the Capricorn planet and also the opposition it forms with Mars. And that is really, really good news for all of us. Now, it is absolutely true that on the world stage, regarding the global crisis, things are not going to get that much better because we have a forward moving direct Saturn in the third decan of Capricorn. So the limitations, the restrictions, all the turmoil, all the crisis is still going to persist. And Pluto is there, Jupiter amplifies everything. So that part still remains active with or without the intensity of the Mars squares. But this is where personally, for the individual in our personal lives, things can get significantly better. And it's not just that they can get better, there are solutions there, unexpected and quite lucky fortunate twists and turns of events. Things from the past, even the distant past, can make a lot of sense right now. And also because, the North Node in Gemini is starting to hold a tighter square with that Neptune in Pisces. It is almost like a divine inspiration of urgency for us to believe in ourselves and our goals, in our feelings, and whatever we want to achieve progress with that much stronger. And this belief of ours can simply quantum leap us into the right direction. And if this wasn't enough, also a longer lasting aspect where Neptune perfects its sextile with Jupiter. Well, that can be an infusion of faith, that can be optimism, but genuine optimism, and ultimately the power of dreams where we can just dream our well-being into existence. Now also at the same time, especially after the Sun is going to move into the sign of Scorpio on the 23rd of October, it is going to have a really mystical, almost paranormal, magical vibe where the full force of our unconscious minds gets truly released and unleashed, because Mercury retrograde is also in that part of the sky. So it's activating everything, especially the past, especially our unconscious patterns, and not just the negative ones. There are also really, really positive ones in there, and those can be activated because it also opposes Uranus, the planet of the highest cerebral activities, and that can make a lot of difference. Because, there are a lot of bad sides to Mercury retrograde season, especially in the sign of Scorpio, because it's a really heavy and powerful unconscious energy. But there is hidden blessings in there, and especially if we know what to do, especially if we are open to working with this energy, it can turn into a major blessing where, it is the power of our unconscious minds, and we don't even need that much celestial help and guidance and, miracles, because we can create all of this on our own by tapping into our divine spark, the quantic power of our unconscious. But also when all of this is also supported by divine intervention, the energy of blessings, good fortune, solutions, divine guidance, and I'm talking about that as Venus traverses through the last decan of Virgo all throughout the week, she is going to perfect trines with all three of the Capricorn planets. First, she begins with Jupiter, and that's going to be a really, really positive and good and fortunate energy, because according to the ancients, Jupiter is the greater benefic bestower of blessings, and Venus is the lower one. And whenever they speak harmoniously like this, well, that means good news for all of us in at least one area of our lives. It is absolutely true that both of these planets are not as powerful because they're debilitated. Venus is not very strong, as in not so very optimistic, romantic, idealistic in the sign of Virgo. She's very, very down to earth and practical. And Jupiter is basically the same in the sign of Capricorn. It is not blind faith, but it is rather healthy faith, healthy optimism, and a very strong sense of practicality to all of this, self-mastery basically. But of course, all of this is really, really good news because it's exactly down to earth energy, the help which we need the most, the help which is not just some psychological infusion of optimism and faith, but also something really, really practical, down to earth, maybe material, which can truly help us. And if not, someone out there, maybe a family member, maybe even a total stranger, just coming into our lives, taking our hand and just guiding us, helping us in a very useful manner. And with Mercury retrograde in the sign of Scorpio, strongly activated and balanced out by its higher octave Uranus, we can perceive this as, Uranus, a very strong electromagnetic energy, sending bolts of electricity into our neural system, into our brains, our neurons, activating dormant energies, maybe skills, talents, which we didn't even know we had them. And if we are wise enough and strong enough and stable enough, or at least trying our very, very best not to allow this to turn into unexplainable restlessness, anxiety, etc., then it is a massive blessing. And the sun later on the 23rd, joining this energy, well, the sun is going to illuminate everything. It is going to shed light on everything hidden, repressed in our unconscious minds. And there, as I said earlier, that it's not just bad things repressed there. It's not just traumas, pains, hurts, betrayal, unforgiveness, things that really caused an emotional crisis in our lives in the past or recent past or even in the present. But there's also a lot of positive things there, nostalgic moments, recalling memories when we did succeed, when things did turn out to be okay, when, we exceeded our own expectations. So everything is about balance. The positive things can truly take over, take dominance, and, create true miracles in our lives. And as I said earlier, this is a very practical kind of miracle, if this makes sense, because when we are speaking about our own unconscious intelligence, well, it's not, the universe pulling strings like a puppet master from up there, but rather it's us from the inside. And when it's us personally, well, that means that things are that much practical and our needs are met with greater precision. And Neptune sextiling Jupiter, Neptune, the planet of compassion, of mercy, yes, illusion and fantasy, but everything in human society is basically illusion. It is just us who make it real. And that is exactly what Jupiter sextiling Neptune is all about. Make our kindest, our most compassionate, our most useful illusions and fantasies, turn it into reality, infuse reality with them. Like, let me give you a real practical example of this. Song, music, artistic expressions, poetry, inspirational speeches. Well, when we listen to them and we are open, they can actually change our moods in a way nothing else can in this world. And whenever our moods, our state of consciousness is altered through this fantasy, so to speak, well, that really affects our everyday lives. Whenever we approach everything with a different mindset, inspired by that music, given hope by someone's speech or words, well, that makes all of the difference. And if we combine this with Mercury retrograde in the sign of Scorpio, then we have a very strong alchemical power here, which can actually help us in the most unexpected, mysterious, magical and miraculous ways. Like, let me also give you an example. You know, the periodic table that we have today about the chemical elements was invented by Russian scientist Dmitry Mendeleev. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. And naturally, he did a lot of research. He put monumental work into this. But you know, the position of the elements and how the periodic table should actually look like in a very practical manner just didn't come together for him. He tried and tried and tried, but it just wasn't perfect. It wasn't okay. Until one night, he went to sleep and he kind of dreamed up the arrangement of the elements and basically the periodic table that we know today. And when he woke from his dream, well, his work was completed. He recalled it. He recalled what he saw in his dream, and naturally he wrote it down, or, created the periodic table. And that was an expression of how his unconscious mind did the work for him. He desired it so very strongly, and naturally he sacrificed for it. So he input all of the conscious work and the sacrifice, whatever Saturn requires, and sometimes what Pluto requires. We can say that his higher self or his unconscious mind actually gave him a miraculous reward because it aided him to, create the finished product, and that was rather miraculous and a fine example of how this energy can advantage us. But of course, it won't play out for everyone the same way because, some people won't see what they need in their dreams, but Uranus, Mercury retrograde opposing Uranus, and later on, also the Sun in Scorpio, well, that can mean a very powerful epiphany, a moment of sudden realization, a moment of synchronicity when someone just says something and it just clicks for you and something really important comes to your awareness, or it can be a deja vu moment, or it can be a vision, an altered state of consciousness. It can be so very many different things which offer a solution in a very, practical but mental way. And at the same time, speaking about unexpected and surprises, we also have a very unusual aspect, a minor astrological influence, where Venus from the sign of Virgo forms a quincunx with Mars retrograde in his home sign of Aries. And this can play out in a number of different ways, because the quincunx connects two different areas of life which apparently have nothing to do with each other. So it can play out as surprises, delight, or awkwardness, weird moments. But since Venus speaks from the sign of Virgo, it still has some kind of practicality to it, even though it may not make any kind of sense. So one way this aspect can play out, something that you desired some time ago and maybe even forgot about it or surrendered it, or you stopped believing in it, can all of a sudden, out of no explanation, no reason, just enter your life. Venus in Virgo is also an energy of self-sacrifice or service to others. Something that you might have done for someone a very long time ago is going to be rewarded right now, even though if the reward is not very useful in this present moment. It can also be a job offer or an offer to collaborate, or someone asking a favor, even though you might not feel you really want to, or you might feel so very, very tired and you just don't have the energy to spare. but if you might choose to still offer the help, it can turn into a very pleasant surprise. But naturally, Venus is the goddess of love and beauty, so it can also represent unexpected romantic declarations or gestures of love, or being connected to someone who apparently is so very not your type, yet still if you give it a chance, you might be very surprised. But of course we also need to speak a little bit about the negative energy, the squares, because Mars is going to perfect its square with Jupiter. And Jupiter is the planet of expansion, so it extends everything that it touches, it magnifies it, it amplifies it, it gives it that much more power. And Mars retrograde in Aries is very rebellious, it is an energy of frustration, my will or the highway. So this can spark up once again the protests, the uprisings, the revolutions, people taking to the streets and demanding their justice, equality, fighting against the restrictions. So we can have a moment like this. And individually, this is where, if you are a very willful person and you just don't want to surrender your way, your desires, your obsessions, well, this aspect can turn it into an illness. It can aggravate it very, very much. So during this Mars retrograde and Jupiter square, it is a really good idea not to force anything, even if it's a desire, even if not achieving something frustrates you, because it can truly turn into something negative. It can make you really aggressive. It can, bring out certain reactions, certain words, certain gestures which are really, really not like you. Because let's not forget that Aries, and especially with Mars, its ruling planet in it, it's all our instinctual energies, our animal instincts. So, it's not a good idea to unleash your full fury, your rage, your anger, self-discipline, and, surrendering, or at least putting certain things on pause which just don't work, or you're not getting your way, is the most wisest and most diligent idea. This is where it can also challenge our beliefs, our inner truth, our faith, because Jupiter has to do with all of those. And the best way to take this, not to make a big drama or fuss about it, because whenever our faith is challenged, the universe also offers us new perspectives. So if we are versatile enough and approach all of this with an open mind and an open heart, it can represent a very powerful upgrade. All of our doubts and whatever the inner elements of our inner truth are being challenged, they are being challenged for us to upgrade them, for us to embody a higher version of all of that. So if we take this aspect in the wisest way possible, where we're not fighting the universe, we're not fighting the karmic patterns that play here, but we rather choose to cooperate, even though it might be a little bit painful or disheartening, disillusioning, it can turn into a massive blessing. But if we choose to fight it with full force, well, this is where we truly cannot win against the universe, or, it will be like Don Quixote, we will be fighting windmills and nothing good is gonna come out of that. And also, around the 21st of October, Venus is going to form a trine with Pluto, and that is a really, really strong fated energy. Now, Pluto in Capricorn can represent money, wealth, riches, the earthly power of money. Venus is currency, well-being. Venus is our earthly happiness, so to speak. And in Virgo, it represents a very down-to-earth way of expression. So everything that we have lost, everything that we have surrendered, everything that fate, basically Pluto, took away from us, under such a sky, can and will be replaced. They say when one door closes, another door has to open, and this is exactly that kind of aspect. and it can represent money, it can represent career, job, activities, project, but at the same time, it can represent love, relationship, and partnerships, where Venus in Virgo requires a commitment. So there is an energy of commitment for the long-term future, not just, empty promises. But at the same time, Venus in Virgo, for example, its tarot correspondent is the Nine of Coins. So that means self-sufficiency, independency, well-being in your personal life without having to share it with anyone. It can play out like that. If you lost a relationship, the universe can actually tell you at this time, well, good riddance, because it was lost, it was taken away from you, for you to enjoy your own happiness and your own self-sufficiency, your own material independence. Just enjoy life that you have worked for and created for yourself. And then, of course, at the very end of the week, Venus is going to form a trine with Saturn, and this can represent karmic reward. It can represent something really positive from the past returning onto your life. It can represent karmic completions. It is a very strong and powerful karmic energy where there is a touch of justice in there as well. If you suffered some kind of injustice in the past, you can be compensated for it either in an earthly manner, human justice, courts, trials, etc., or in a karmic way where it still enters your life in a very palpable way. But of course, in order for us to turn this into a truly blessed, magical, mystical, true karmic harvest kind of period, well, there are certain requirements. First of all, we have to work with the energies of Mercury retrograde opposing Uranus. So whatever it brings to the surface, traumas, pains, disillusions, disappointments, hurts, things that we could not forgive, well, we have to work with those, confront them, and ultimately eliminate them from our minds and our lives. Or whenever the powers of the universe inspire us and guide us to step out of our comfort zones and do something that is rather uncomfortable for us personally, but it's necessary. If we cooperate, well, it can turn into a massive blessing. This is the kind of energy where we are being helped to eliminate either karmic debts, repay things that we owe to other people, for example, favors, or if we borrowed money or anything from another person. It is a really, really good energy to start repaying debts, for example, to banks, a credit, a mortgage, etc. Even if it cannot manifest instantly, at least we will have a plan, or maybe we can be offered some kind of scheme or tactic or a strategy by, centralized power or organization, institution. For example, for citizens living in Europe, maybe like a European fund or grant, etc. It is also a really good aspect for business, but that which has been left behind from the past. For example, if you started out on a project or any kind of business, but this very powerful Saturn put everything on hold, this is the moment when a solution to resume that project or finding the resources necessary to start it up or keep it going can come from organizations or maybe a non-profit organization, institutions, the government, or you can be connected to a totally new business partner who wants to do the same thing. But of course, new initiatives, new contracts, new everything that you want to initiate at this period, may it be financial or personal or anything like that, well, it might suffer from the energies of Mercury retrograde because it doesn't really favor new things. It might block communication, it might cause misunderstandings, long delays. If you have any kind of paperwork or are expecting an official reply or have any kind of legal case. It might be stuck for the moment. And of course, in those cultures where there are elections and political battles, etc., things can really go wrong there. But it can expose secrets, really powerful secrets, mistakes, flaws, corruption, nepotism, crimes of sexual nature, because Scorpio rules sexuality. For couples, it can, reveal infidelity and affairs and secrets. Especially that on the 22nd of October, before the sun enters the sign of Scorpio, it's gonna be at 29, so anaretic degree of Libra, where its symbolism is greatly amplified and usually the shadow expression takes over. So that will be a cry out for equality, justice, and it will really challenge relationships. And we can see the way and how it will challenge. Well, if Mercury retrograde in Scorpio reveals certain secrets, flaws, mistakes, who holds the power, who holds the upper hand, the superior position in a relationship of any nature, even business, work, contracts, partnerships, any one-on-one alliance, well, there can be a struggle there, and it can, lead to termination or reconfiguration. And this is perfectly valid on the world stage as well, where diplomatic relations between nations can change, can reconfigure itself. But regardless, this is an opening this autumn, because as I said in all my horoscopes, this autumn is going to be really intense and heavy. This is a rare opening when we have so many energies of blessings and positivity and practical solutions in the sky. So we need to stay detached from the global drama. We need to stop feeling like we're victims. We truly need to focus on positivity, but in such a way we're brave enough to confront all the things that this Uranus and Mercury is going to pull to the surface, our own shadows, our own egocentric tendencies, our own self-defeating thoughts, traumas, and all the problems of the past which deeply rooted themselves into our neural pathways and are causing us to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. We have to heal all of this, and what a perfect opportunity this is. Because there is so much help, positivity, optimism, and a very strong, mysterious alchemical energy in the sky, where the hand of fate is going to come and truly help us. It will trigger powerful resolutions, or for example, big opportunities to recover everything that we have lost, everything that the hand of fate has taken away from us in the past. For example, starting 3 years ago, when Saturn started to enter into Capricorn. And this is perfectly true spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. This gives us a chance to recover and ultimately regenerate. Mercury in Scorpio, especially retrograde, is basically regeneration. So if we work with all of this, and if we do not allow the hardships, the global drama, and even our own fears, shame, guilt, and insecurities to overcome us, this can be a moment when, life can be really magical, and our own personal magic, our own faith, beliefs, and optimism can turn our lives around and can basically provide us with long-term protection and safety and groundedness. Well, thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a very magical and blessed week. If you'd like a personal reading, just log on to 1millionnights.com and find your dedicated advisor, where if you buy any of our prepaid packages, you get 10% bonus credit. Thank you once again. Until next time, bye for now.